Hey, Chris.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, Adam.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, Adam.
Hey, Chris.
Man, well, you are our first ever guest on Bensayin, so this is a momentous moment.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, no
Okay.
pressure. Um, Adam Levy, for anyone who's not familiar with you, what's the elevator pitch of who you are and what you do?
Uh, well, if you're in an elevator, you have probably heard me play guitar. Uh, you might not know my name or my face, but I played on the first Nora Jones record, which was a pretty massive record, I guess, and I played with Tracy Chapman on a song called "Give Me One Reason" that was a Grammy-winning song. So if you haven't heard me in an elevator, you've probably heard me at the grocery store.
Right.
But I'm not a household name or anything like that. But I'm on records that you've probably heard, and I am in this kind of Venn diagram of jazz meets folk meets. Well, I guess that's really what it is. It's yeah. I'm trying to keep it in the elevator.
I would say, yeah, it's jazz and folk and some kind of West Coast Americana as well, like some soul music.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
What's the first music that caught your attention and what drew you to the guitar?
Well, my mom had a really interesting record collection. I mean, of course, I would hear stuff on the radio, and when I was a kid in the 70s, there was plenty of guitar just on, network television. There was shows like Hee Haw and variety shows. So it wasn't unusual to turn on the TV and somebody's playing guitar in the foreground or maybe in the background. So there's that. But then when I was old enough to where my mom let me actually like go through her records and use the turntable, she had this Simon and Garfunkel record called Bridge Over Troubled Waters.
Yeah.
So I listened to that a lot. I loved it because some of the stuff was really kind of easygoing. Like there's a song on that record called Celia. You're breaking my heart. You're shaking my confidence daily. And it really just sounds like, a couple of guys like in a stairwell clapping and singing, and there's not that much to it. And then you have like the Boxer, I think, where there's like an orchestra and a canon and like, so things that there's kind of wide shots and then there's real intimate shots. And it was really, and a lot of records that did that were fascinating to me. My mom also had Sgt. Pepper, which also there's things that feel very up close and personal, and there's things that feel symphonic and stuff. And
Even just in the first song of that record.
exactly. Yeah. So that was the stuff that caught my ear early on.
Mm-hmm. And how did that connect to the guitar in some way, or?
Not yet. Again, like I know I just said this, but it's just really true. Like the guitar was just in the culture. I was born in 66. Mm-hmm. So coming up, in the 70s, guitar was just everywhere. So that's just kind of in the background of everything, the way I remember it. But I noticed that there were guitars on the Simon and Garfunkel record, and there were guitars on the Beatles records, but those weren't the things that were interesting to me immediately. I didn't really get the guitar until I had tried some other instruments. I tried the piano, I tried the clarinet, and they didn't make any sense. And then I happened to pick up a guitar at summer camp when I was 11 or something, and somehow it made sense. And in that moment, I mean, not holding it in my hands, but watching like older kids play it clicked of like, oh, that's kind of like the Beatles and Simon and Garfunkel, all of the sudden it seemed much more. It was, the guitar is obviously big parts of those records, but and it wasn't until I saw a guitar
Mm.
up close at
Mhm.
camp and then tried to play it that it all just kind of, I don't know. That was me being bit by a radioactive spider.
Totally. Yeah. How did you get from there to being I don't know what the word would be, kind of immersed in jazz, and then I don't know. Part B? Do you struggle to define what you do musically at all? Like you said, there's definitely a Venn diagram happening there.
Yeah. The jazz thing, I started reading Guitar Player magazine when I was probably 14 or something. And it was pretty interesting. Like, it was always a good mix. There's always, a rock, usually a rock dude on the cover, but then you start flipping through, because then that's, what's going to sell the magazine, I guess. But then there would always be some lessons in the back, and those would be more jazz oriented. And I was just so hungry for information. And like with the rock stuff, it didn't seem like, I love rock, but it didn't at that time, and maybe still, it didn't seem about information and learning. It was just, well, it just, here's the stuff and just play and feel it. And in jazz, there was this learning curve, and I kind of got hooked on the learning curve. It's like, oh, that's a scale I don't know. Let me try to work that out. Let me see if I can make some sense. That's a chord I don't know. So that was, I think, part of how I got hooked on jazz. It just was like to keep learning, and yeah, to define myself is always. I mean, if I can help it, I try not to, but it comes up all the time. Either in a casual conversation, I get into a taxi cab with a guitar, and somebody says, "Oh, tell me, what do you do?" That, I'm interested. Or, I'm writing a blurb about my new record, and I have to try to describe what it is. And I don't, it's like hard to describe what you look like or something,
Totally.
like,
Yeah.
I feel like we suffer from the same kind of thing, actually, as a company,
okay.
because people don't really know, what, like, okay, cool. What are these amps for? Like, well, harmonics are for everyone. Like, what do you mean? Like, no, like, what are they for? And what they're asking is what kind of person plays them, or how do they
Oh,
identify?
yeah. Huh.
And I I try to avoid that question a lot as well, but it's indie rockers, like Americana, country, like rock and roll, jazz, like I could see them fitting into all sorts of, but there's definitely like, yeah, I feel that, like, not being able to do multiple different things. It's kind of a weird zone to inhabit,
Yeah.
and hard to explain to a taxi driver.
Yeah.
or an Uber driver, as the case may be.
Yeah. I'm kind of envious of players who have a real clear thing that they can say. And I wonder, like, people maybe can't see this on camera, but I'm looking, and there's some amps against the wall. There's a Marshall here. Like, there's no question who a Marshall stack is for, right? But I mean, do you ever wish it was easier, or that's not that important?
I don't know. Like, my whole life, I've kind of been like that, though. But like, circle of friends, I'm kind of like hovering in the middle of a bunch of different folks, and I think it makes it less convenient, um, to not really have like a definition for yourself. But I think that there's a lot of power in it as well, and it's kind of a slow burn. Like, eventually people realize that, oh, you can, it's kind of didactic almost. You're kind of showing that, like, these boundaries are kind of artificial, and maybe let's not think about that. But that's not a tight package to present, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's not how the world works.
Right. Right.
It kind of begs the question, Chris, because I know when you were first started designing amps, you were repairing stuff, and you would kind of you found something you liked in an amp that came across your bench. You would sort of try to incorporate some of that into your whatever your Frankenstein first thing was.
Yeah.
I've never thought about this, but would you attribute that versatility or that sort of like width of voice to that? Or
Well, I kind of see my designs as an avatar of myself. I like all sorts of different music.
right.
I wouldn't say my amps are for metal or anything like that, but this it can do a clean tone that's also harmonically rich, and that can work for certain types of heavy music. I kind of like everything, and I feel like that's the amps show that off. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe we can think of your music as an avatar for you or something.
Yeah.
That might be a little too I don't know.
Well, I definitely think when I hear you play, it sounds like Adam. It sounds like this. It's interesting what you said about the knowledge part, because there is a sophistication that you can bring to the guitar, but even in what the music we were playing today, you can absolutely channel some like gnarly, like mangle it, strangle it sort of sounds too that are. It's exciting to me because it is a blend of really cool musical ideas and this emotional, textural, gritty thing.
I love it when you do that, by the way. I was like, whoa, where'd that come from?
And I think there's sometimes I want to listen to music that is on the more intellectual bent, and sometimes I want to listen to things that are really Cro-Magnon, but it's usually it's like something that's a blend of all of that stuff that really intrigues me. So I enjoy that about your playing.
Well, thanks. Yeah. A lot of stuff in music is exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a lot of years, I did partition them because I thought that was what you were supposed to do. Maybe because like the first job I had in high school, I worked at a record store. I might have had a paper route before that, but like the first like jobby job that I had, and like you work at a record store, there's sections. There's the jazz section. There's the rock, the rock section. There's the classical section, and so you kind of, and then radio is like that too. You decide, I'm a jazz person, I'm going to listen to the jazz station. Or for this drive from here to there, I want to be in a jazz mood. And they're not going to suddenly throw something on the jazz station that's not that. So I think in my mind, that was how the music was supposed to be presented. Like it was okay to be curious about different things, but when it was time to do a show or make a record or, anything like that, and more, I'm just letting that stuff dissolve. If I'm playing a New York jazz club with my band, where in the past I would just play instrumental music, and now I'll throw in I'll sing. Like I'd never, until like a year ago, I'd never even sung. I sing a lot, but that's like, well, that's a different band. I have a band where I'm the guy who sings in the band.
This is a song gig.
Yeah. But now it's just like, you know what? If I'm playing with my song band, I can play a jazz song. And if I'm playing a jazz, like, I think on the whole, like, it's more about people want to have a certain experience. And at least for me, within all of the different things I like to do, uh, there's enough commonality that nobody's gonna like, you know, fall out of their chair or, you know, throw an
You
olive.
can't do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess obviously there are extremes where that might be shocking, but that's
Right.
in my world. I'm just like, it's like funny that it took me this long to figure out that I actually could mix it up, and on the whole, people are seem pretty cool and actually are encouraging. Like, oh, cool, yeah, a song you singing. Oh, you know, it's like I'm embarrassed that it took me so long to do that.
Yeah, I think maybe this. I mean, this gets philosophical, but I think maybe even when I was growing up, beginning to really get into music, things were still more delineated of what you were into, and more now because we have streaming and access to every kind of music. You know, let alone algorithms that'll like generate things adjacent to what you like. I feel like maybe people's listening is broadening to some degree, even with my own kids. You know, like my daughter likes things from every era. You know, she likes the Beatles, she loves Toto, she loves, you know, uh, modern pop music, and I don't think she sees the same differentiation between that stuff that even I did in the age of the record store, you know, in the age of like genre.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'm gonna run an idea by you
Okay.
guys. Like in the era that I came up in, you know, image was a big part of it.
Oh wow.
Whether it was record cover art or MTV, and you really had this idea of what a band was about by their image, meaning what did they wear, how did they style their hair, what kind of guitars were they holding, and stuff like that. And that is a little bit absent now. You know, if you're a young person and you're sitting at home listening to music on a streaming service, the imagery isn't so much out there. It's not, they're not, like I was saying earlier about looking at the cover of Guitar Player magazine. It could be the cover of Rolling Stone, or it could be the cover of whatever. I don't think kids are reading magazines or looking at, you know, an album cover art that's a 12 by 12 piece of cardboard that the image is there, and or MTV. And so it really is just like, I mean, it's funny to me when I go back and listen to records like that in the 70s seemed really different to me, like two records that maybe came out in 1975. One could be really like, I don't know, like the Eagles, and the other could be kind of post-punk, or and then I listened to stuff that I thought at that time was like, oh, this is like really hardcore punk. It's like, oh, these are actually really catchy songs, you know, and like other, like just even back then, the actual music maybe wasn't as far apart as it was presented, you know, and that maybe now that the image, you know, the imagery people get now, I guess, comes from social media and stuff. So maybe it's not true that there's no imagery involved, but
I think it's maybe less iconic,
Yeah.
though. I mean, it's less like the cover of Joshua Tree or something, where you would see like, this is the representation of the band, and now we're presented with stuff all day long that's, you know, not nearly as singular as
right,
that.
it's
Yeah.
mimetic, it's not iconic.
Yeah, that's interesting. Was there an evolution like sound and gear wise for you, like this sort of breaking down of barriers between jazz and rock and folk and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Well, I was lucky I got an ES 335 when I was 13.
Mm.
Yeah.
Pretty lucky.
Very lucky.
Yeah.
My dad, it was my bar mitzvah, and my dad said, well, you seem like you're pretty serious about this guitar thing. Let me know what guitar you would like. And somehow the 12-and-a-half-year-old me thought a 335 was a cool guitar. I wasn't looking at Strats or, anything like that. And I
It's
got it
incredible.
and I loved it. But then, this is in 1979.
Mhm.
And yeah, Larry Carlton was playing a guitar like that, and B.B. King was playing a guitar kind of like that. But most of what you heard on the radio wasn't that. There was lots of Strats and, Dire Straits was huge, and Van Halen was huge, and the Pretenders had come out, and the Police, and, most things that I was hearing on the radio, I couldn't possibly get those sounds out of what I had, which was an ES335, an MXR Distortion Plus, and a Fender Princeton amp with no reverb.
Mhm.
And so I had no chance of sounding anything like the records I was listening to, but I tried, I did my best. And then over time, I got more into pedals, and I got some different amps. Probably like the biggest like moment for me was in my mid 20s when I happened to buy an old, like a mid 60s deluxe reverb amp, which at that time was the first vintage amp I had played. Everything else was these kind of like Rivera era Fenders, which are really now, I mean, those are great amps, of course, but the deluxe reverb was like, oh, I didn't need effects. I could just plug straight in and get a sound that was really satisfying. And it worked at different volume levels. And it was like, oh, that was really helpful. But still, I mean, I'm really the thing I was saying about information and the learning curve of jazz and stuff, I wish I had applied that same mindset to gear earlier, because I mean, I've learned more about sound, I would say, like in the last 10 years, just by, getting to know you and getting to know Mason Stoops in LA, and getting to know engineers and producers, and like so many of these sounds in my head that I grew up with that I were just there's still a part of me that's like this 13-year-old kid trying to figure out why I can't make the guitar sound like what's on the record. And now I still play just like the way that I play, but like a lot of stuff makes a lot more sense to me. And I wish, I've been paying more attention to that side of the guitar earlier on, because I think it's helped me so much, because the stuff that I play now, I can actually get it to speak on a record or in a club, and it plays well with others. It's just like,
Well, you should have done what I did, which was, instead of writing a record, I was procrastinating on making music and started making amps and learned everything I could about tone electronics. I'm kidding. You shouldn't have done that.
But like, were you like going to like Radio Shack and buying part? Were you like taking radios apart, or?
I was taking mostly guitar amps apart, but there was a period of time where I was harvesting transistors from old radios and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, it was fun. It wasn't like totally sad, but
No, but like, were there people that you looked up to, like in the same way that as kids we look up to great guitar players? Were there people that you were like, oh, that guy's doing something really interesting?
The interesting thing about like that sort of design is, if you're of a certain kind of mind, and I'm not even saying it's a good mind, but a certain kind of mind, you can kind of learn the entire history of guitar amplification technology just by looking at schematics and studying them and seeing, asking why did they do this and why did they do that and why did they change this from that revision. And you can really get to know like designers or design teams just through looking at sheets of paper, having never even read interviews or whatever, which is pretty interesting. So through that process, I do have my favorite kind of pet designers that, most of them are dead. I've obviously Fender's a huge one. I mean, gosh, he just didn't miss on guitar amps or guitars or really anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating.
And then with pedals, man, when I first got into it, I thought, once I started kind of seeing what circuits people were playing with and moving stuff forward, I had a design crush on like Zachary Vex. I mean, I just thought the stuff that he was doing was super elegant, very simple, but very creative and sounded good. And so that was a major inspiration for me, trying to strip stuff back, and instead of chasing magical components and stuff like that, be more elegant and thoughtful in the actual electronic design of what I do. So yeah, I got some heroes.
I love the idea, kind of like being able to tell a player of some kind of instrument by something that they do semi-regularly, like, oh, okay, I know that fill or that lick or tendency to play that note over that chord. But having that with electronics is, you're like, oh, I see, this is like a Leo habit or something.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I never thought of that. That's really beautiful. And hearing you say that, like, oh, it's elegant and simple, like that's the kind of stuff that appeals to me in players. So to think that somebody that you would talk that way about somebody who's a designer that really draws me in. That makes me want to know more about what they're doing. I don't know what the day will bring. I don't know what the day will bring. I don't know what the day will bring, but the sun will rise and the birds will sing. I don't know what the day will bring. I don't know what's in her heart. I don't know what's in her heart. I don't know what's in her heart, but if it's sweet, then that's a start. I don't know what's in her heart. I don't know what's on her mind. A hidden treasure hard to find. X marks the spot, and that's the only clue I got. On her mind, a hidden treasure hard to find. Well, X marks the spot, and that's the only clue I got. I don't know what the day will bring. I don't know what the day will bring. diamond ring. I don't know what the day will bring. I don't know what the day will bring. I don't know what the day will bring.